We don't have the interference of the speaker. Um, it's wonderful to see everyone here today. I was briefly sharing with you all, but I'm the founder, creator, and director of Mushroom City Art Festival. And so here I am presenting my dissertation to all of you at the 10th annual Mushroom City. This is a special thing. Thank you for being here for this moment. Yay! Okay. Um, my talk is called Remediations and Reciprocal Relations with Mushroom Plant and Human Healers. And I'm probably gonna because the talk goes to like a full hour, I'll probably speed through parts of it just to keep on track for William, who's speaking at 4:15. But you're still gonna get to hear lots. So this is a photo of our phytoremediating sunflower lot in East Central Baltimore. And so there are some members of Rise Renewal Collective who are here today, but this is one of my other projects in addition to Mushroom City Art Festival. And we got a mural that was painted last summer. I would like to give a land acknowledgement to the Piscataway peoples and just to acknowledge that this was originally their home. These are their native lands that we are currently on, and that part of this larger healing and decolonization is recognizing the native lands we occupy. So this is a two-node dissertation. So that means like it just has like two whole like areas that we're working to bring into the conversation with each other. This is a photo of my teacher's teacher center in Pucallpa. We're outside of Pucallpa in the rainforest. And so it's really unusual. It's a geologic wonder. So this beautiful boiling river is unconnected to any volcanic activity. Yeah, and so yeah, it's a special place to go visit. So these are my research questions for Node 1. Okay, so that Node 1 is a series of interviews, and I was able to interview indirectly four members, four women in the Mazatec tradition who work with sacred mushrooms. And then through my connection with my Antiochiu and being a student of the plants myself, I was able to also interview healers in this tradition as well. So my talks changed a little bit. I was initially calling the fungi and plants and all those other awesome beings who we occupy the world with as more than humans. And my committee encouraged me to other than humans, though I like more than humans better. But they are the animals, insects, stones, landforms, and the fungi and plants specifically I will be focusing on in this talk. And that's some of the inspiration for this festival is realizing that there are other than humans who we can align with at this time to work towards new solutions and build new relationships for planetary regeneration. So to tell you first about the Mazatec tradition involves telling you a little bit about the story of Maria Sabina, who became a very famous Mazatec curandera chine in her lifetime. And she became unwittingly famous. This wasn't a path that she chose, but involved a couple of Westerners coming to visit Oaxaca and specifically Huatla, where Maria Sabina lived. And so the Wassons, they contributed a lot to the field of ethnomycology. There's a lot of work that they did, but it's problematic at the same time too, in that Gordon Wasson attended a ceremony with Maria Sabina, and at that time, very few, if any, foreigners sat in ceremonies with the Mazatec. And he lied, and he said that his son was missing when that wasn't true, because the ceremonies were not sought after for one's just like spiritual awakening, but they really performed a deep service in the Mazatec community, that they were the poor people's medicine because they didn't have access to other medicines. So people will go to ceremonies to receive healing. And Wasson attended a ceremony with Sabina, and he was a devout Catholic himself, and he had a very revelatory experience, and he decided to share that experience with the world. And as you can imagine what might happen, so in 1957, this article was published, and the Mazatec tradition is very private and secret. They had to go underground for hundreds of years during the Spanish Inquisition in order to keep their ceremonies intact, that are really about the communication with an other than human. And the secrecy of their ceremonies is so powerful. That's where the communicative wisdom of the mushroom lies, that power in that silence and veiling around the ceremony. And so this kind of broadcasts to the world the nature of these ceremonies. Her identity was half hidden, but it wasn't too hard for people to figure it out. There were photos published. He didn't have permission to publish the photos in light. And a flock of spiritual seekers descended on Huatla in search of the mushrooms. But the Mazatec had a really, they had a relationship with another than human. And something that's characteristic of relationships is being in reciprocity and being in exchange, listening, and communication. And the foreigners who arrived didn't understand this. They saw it as a commodity that they could seek out, and that the mushrooms could be taken at any place, at any time, and did not adhere to the protocols around the ceremony. And this was deeply distressing to the Mazatec, and is really a kind of, even though it wasn't intended, but a spiritual colonialism. And so that's this history that still ricochets to this day. The first time that I was introduced to Maria Sabina was when I was a grad student at Naropa University. I was studying creative writing, and I was introduced to her chants as a kind of poetry. And I never imagined at this time in my life that my work would in any way intersect with her life. She says, "I am a shooting star woman says. I am a trumpet woman says. I am the morning star woman says. I am the woman who grew the water says." And so it's this beautiful evocation, of all these faces, all these voices. And scholar Edward Munn likened this to the masks that shamans wear through the ages. And it's the way that I see it is that it reminds me of the holobond, which is that like one organism is comprised of many. Like when we examine ourselves on a microscopic level, we discover that the I actually contains multitudes. I am not I am multitudes. As I'm paraphrasing Walt Whitman. So the other tradition is a plant medicine tradition that I've been working in since 2013. And I was invited to participate in this tradition. And should just say a little bit more about my positionality that, like I've never sat in a Mazatec ceremony, and I wouldn't unless I was invited to. But this tradition surprisingly found me, and it has a very, as every indigenous culture is extremely different and unique. This tradition is an Ashaninka tradition. It doesn't represent all Ashaninka traditions, but it has a global outreach. There's something referred to by some of the students of the plants called a plantena, and it is about the plants' outreach and mission to spread healing. This is a photo of Maestro Flores, with his consent, to be on the cover of the French National Geographic. And so this center was featured in like a BBC documentary. There's many writers who've written about the space. And so I used Maestro Flores' name in my research because he has already been written about.
Yeah, all
right. And so just kind of highlighting here from Jeremy Narby, is this amazing anthropologist who has written about Mayantiacu in Intelligence in Nature. And when I've been to Mayantiacu, a lot of people have heard of this space because they were reading Intelligence in Nature. So one of the things I'm looking at with my research is also the characteristics of an igro that are sung during these vegetalismo plant medicine ceremonies. Chilean scholar Susana Bustos highlights some of the main characteristics of the igro. That they are shamanic songs which express a shaman's strength. They are received in various ways, such as dream trance or other initiatory states, and they function to induce trance states, invoke spirits, and guide the shaman's journey. So, as I mentioned, the study focuses on 4 wise women in the Mazatec tradition, and then 5 curanderos within the plant medicine tradition, and a couple of students of the plants. The differentiation there is that students of the plants, they're working to learn from the plants, but they're not necessarily holding that space as healers themselves. So this is a narrative and multi-species inquiry. Narrative is the interviews. Multi-species ethnography is a term used by anthropologists. As I mentioned, I'm a poet. So I'm engaged in multi-species inquiry, and part of this work that I'm interested in whatever small way possible, but to decenter the Anthropocene, is that the Anthropocene is the idea that humanity is the primary driver behind climate change, which is true, but the idea posits humanity again in the center of everything when we're really more part of a circle of life. This other term by Donna Haraway, the Cthulhuzine, is really awesome. I see it as being kind of like mycelial and messy, and that it infinitely proliferates and evokes avatars such as Spider-Woman, Pachamama, Oya. So these are the interview questions, the first set of questions that were asked to the Chine. A member of my dissertation committee, Dr. Catherine McLean, who was originally supposed to be here, and she couldn't make the rain date, but she's a former psilocybin researcher at Hopkins. And it was Catherine's thought that I should connect to this community because of my at the time present research design, and I was drawing connections between elder lived women and the Wood Wide Web, and she thought that I should connect to some women in this tradition. And so that's how this piece of the node came about. So my connection to the Mazatec community, he delivered questions to me, invaluable, and an incredible privilege to have this connection. And that I should also say that my research, the what I'm sharing with you today about the Velada, that's already published in other academic research. So it's not a piece that hasn't been shared that I'm unveiling. But what I am sharing from this talk that is new is hearing directly from these women healers and hearing directly their voices. So one of the questions was, how do the mushrooms communicate? All of the women talked about them communicating softly and gently. That it was just this really gentle presence. And I was just really blown away to learn that. And there was a study that was published a few months ago, and it was like a researcher in London that you may have seen the article mushrooms communicate with a 50-word vocabulary, and it was like measuring electrical spikes sent through the mycelium to different fruiting bodies. And I just thought, wow, Western knowledge is beginning to catch up to indigenous wisdom, traditional ecological knowledge, and that the West is also beginning to learn that mushrooms are communicators. And Chiniel said, mushrooms communicate in a very sweet and gentle way through sensations, since they have their own voice and way of communicating what they want. This they do through dreams or at the time of the ritual ceremony. They only speak when they are eaten in pairs. And so in the ceremony, when they're brought to the altar, and they're collected, by children who in the dead of the night, they can't pass. The person collecting the mushrooms can't come across anything that would be considered a bad omen, like a dead animal, so that they're arriving with complete purity to the ceremony's altar table, and that they're then eaten in pairs. And Chiniel, she also said, the children, so the little children, they like you to sing nicely, softly to them, like cooing them down. In this way, we communicate with them and ask them with songs for what they want. So the song is the mode of communication and part of the reciprocal exchange between the chine and the fungi. That the singing happens in exchange for healing. I asked about reciprocity in ceremony, and one of the things they highlighted was the owner of the mountains, the Chikai, who is a extra-human being that guards various spaces in nature, like mountains, rivers, trails, and that there are, after the ceremony, there are offerings that are made in these locations. And so this is part of the larger healing work, or affecting healing through this larger web of connection. I asked about how healing occurs, and they talked about the mushrooms going directly to the heart of the illness. So in the West, we need a doctor that's gonna, deduce, what our sickness might be. But that this is very direct, and the mushrooms being able to go to the heart of the illness. So this was part of a second round of questions, and I asked if any healing had happened since the unwanted publicity in the 1960s. And so this was hard. The archival guardian was shocked by the responses, and the resounding answer was no, that healing has not happened. And Chineyel had the most to say. Too bad they did that. They stole our secret and our medicine. Why did these people do this? They did not respect our sacred ceremony. That's why I don't work with gringos. Because they did that with our mushroom and Sabina wasn't right. Look now, it's become pure business in Hawatla. People are cheating and presenting themselves as a healing woman or a healing man. And so this fundamental relationship to a sacred other than human has changed in their culture because of the commodification. In a relationship with another than human, there's a reciprocal relationship, exchange, listening, communication. But when something's commodified, it's turned into an object. It's no longer the other than human. So that represents a fundamental change. And to share with you from the plant medicine interviews. So these were the questions. These were asked through Zoom interviews with the healers who I identified myself. And this was like we were having like a conversation like through Zoom. So these interviews were longer. And so one of the things that I was trying to piece together from the interviews was, who is the healer? So the healer is described as a vessel, channel, and a hollow reed. The healer is who the song or the singing to the plants travels through. Maestro Flores said, singing is the communication we use to call the spirit of the plants. Kira Niroe said, one thing I know is that I'm not doing the healing, it's the plant spirits doing the healing who are answering the call of the Icaros. And the Icaro itself has been described as a vibration, frequency, geometry, ancestral songs, songs of gratitude, songs of instruction, and energetic transmission. Kirandera R. She's a Cree healer. She lives in Canada. She said the Icaros, they are everything. They are the whole reason why I'm on this path at all. Kirandera M. said that the plants direct the Icaros direct the plants to grow within the body of the patient. And so this theme kind of comes up again and again, that the healer is kind of like transmitting the song of the plants through them. Kirandera M. told the story of Maestro Flores and how he just told her to sing. You know, this is a simple thing. Puedo cantar, can I sing? Yes, just sing. Again, Kirandero A emphasizing that he's not the one doing the healing. Okay. And that the Kirandero A also emphasized again and again that it's not how good you sing, but it's that the singing comes from your heart, so that it's always heart-based. And so these Icaros are transmitted during dreams and dieta. And Kirandera M, so in my interview with her, she shared a really interesting story. This is a photo of a tambo, which is a raised meditation hut in the jungle. And so this is a place for reflection and to really like learn like the forest like wisdom that you're kind of like tapping in to another place to be able to hear and open oneself to other messages that might come. And when you're in this space, you're on a dieta, and so that means no sexual thoughts, no salt, no sugar, no spicy food, no alcohol, so that you can become more of a container to listen. And Kirandera M told me the story of how she was dieting on Palmamori, which is a blood cleaner, And that night in her dream, this very handsome, not quite human person addressed her and was like, "Hi, I'm Kami Renako." And she's like, "Kami Renako, I'm dieting on tamamori." And he's like, "Hi, I'm Kami Renako." And she found out the next day that she actually hadn't been given tamamori, that she was dieting on Kami Renako. Okay. And yeah, so Kirandera M, again, just talking about the beings that would visit her in her dreams. Okay. And I was able to ask a couple of healers about, like, the healer as a remediator. Because the other node, the sunflower node is about remediation. So I was like, well, I think the healer is a remediator too. And this is what I found out. So Kirandera talked about how when he was first started the medicine path 15 years ago, that there was more darkness. But that the longer he was on the path and the more he worked with the plants and dieted with the plants, that was just transformed into love. And that he's on the plant diets all of the time now. Kirandera R said, following the path of healing is the remediation of these traumas. And Kirandera R also said, so this was really key to me. Like, this was like we are all healers, but we're not good remediators. And I thought it was interesting that she made that distinction, so that we all have the potential to heal ourselves, and that this is what this work guides us towards, is self-healing. But that the remediator might be someone that works on half of healing a larger whole. And this is a photo from a plant medicine walk that I went on 3 years ago at Mayan Tiakyu. And Maestro Flores said, Pachamama is our mother, and she delivers to us many gifts through the plants, so that the relationship with the plants is really the evolution of the relationship of taking and giving back. And I think that happens on the most basic level of life. Like, that's us, like, you know, breathing in oxygen, breathing in out carbon dioxide for the plants. You know, reciprocity, you know, underlies everything. My culminating thought for this node, this is a panoramic of Mayan Tiakyu, is that in an interdependent world, healing is a collective act. And so the phytoremediation of 1316 Valley Street. Okay, so my questions for Node 2, I don't know if you see them from out there, but one of them is, how might the creation of a phytoremediation garden help realize the mutual flourishing described within Chimera's definition of reciprocal restoration? And so Dr. Robin Wall Chimera is a Potawatomi scholar and the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, and her concept of reciprocal restoration is that there's a mutual restoration between land and culture. And when we restore the land, we are going to restore culture at the same time. That it is not nature that is broken, but that it is our relationship to nature that is broken. And all flourishing is mutual. So this is a community action research project. It's place-based. It's the researcher is embedded in the community, and the work is rooted in the needs and issues of the community. So this is a photo of where we're located. We're directly south of the Greenmount Cemetery, where our sunflower lot is. Like, we look like across the street at the cemetery. So it's pretty epic, like in the mornings and evenings, like you get some really gorgeous sunsets because there's so much open space back there. And the Union Train Tunnel runs under Hoffman Street. And so because of that train tunnel, there's like houses that weren't built. There's just this green path of lots That's right at the behind the Greenmount Cemetery. So this is a photo of the Greenmount Coffee Lab and Open Works. This is where the community association holds their meetings. And so what I, been delving into with the research, it has had so many different facets. But one of it is really learning more about the history of redlining and just seeing, and this is so often are collapsed. And there is historic reasons for that, from banks not lending to those communities, that continues to the present day. Like, it's shocking the lack of resources that go to East and West Baltimore, where other areas are lent to by banks, and they are built up and they become part of the white L that runs through the black butterfly. So undertaking this work in this community, it's important to understand what that larger history is. This is a photo of me a few summers ago with some members of the community association, and we had to receive their permission first to work on the lot in their community. And it actually took us a few months to find out first even where their meetings were being held. But I need to say that they're doing tremendous work. Like, I wanted to know where the regenerative force is in Baltimore, and it's with this community association. They have a 2020 vision plan for their neighborhood. They are working to make their neighborhood more green, beautiful, expanding parks, retail, just creating a more habitable place for their neighbors. And so that's the larger work that's happening in that neighborhood, and the remediation project is a little piece within that helps reach towards that larger goal. I'm not going to read you that whole timeline, but this is a photo of us taking out the sunflowers at the end of the summer last year. Please ask me, because I'm going to forget, I have to tell the audience every time, to ask me about the sunflower removal at the end of the talk. Okay, I will stay on track for Will too, so I'm going to start moving through these slides. This is a photo of Charm City Farms, who was our initial partner in the neighborhood, and they kind of helped us with getting established. They agreed to allow us to lead test a couple of the lots that the city had offered to them. One of the lots, the one that we ended up on, tested at 1,278 parts per million of lead in the soil. The U.S. national standard for lead is 400 parts per million. So this lot initially tested 4 times over the national standard.